About 2 months ago, I was walking along the river trying to memorize my lines for my script for this film when I realized that it was the 150th anniversary of the revival. And then I looked into the date a bit more, and I found that he arrived in York, where we are at the moment, on June the 20th, 1873. And I realized that I had planned to come here to do this film on June the 20th, 2023, exactly 150 years. I was very excited about that. And unfortunately, something happened to my cameraman and we had to cancel. And so we've come a month later. But it is still the 150th year since the awakening began. And I'm excited about that. I'm an accountant. I get excited about figures. So Moody and Sankey and their families arrived in Liverpool, and there was a letter there for Moody which explained that the three ministers who had invited them to come to England had all died in the intervening time. And that was why they didn't receive any money for their tickets. And I think that is remarkable. And then he realized that he got to his hotel and he found this telegram that had been given to him when he left, when he got on board in New York. And it was from the head of the YMCA in York, a Mr. Bennett. And Mr. Bennett said to him, if you ever come to England, please come and speak at the YMCA. So Moody sent a telegram to Bennett saying, I've arrived and I'm coming. And Bennett responded saying, well, give us a month and we'll organize everything for you. And Moody responded, I'll be there tomorrow. So he arrived in York, and Bennett was having 2 days before the meetings, got permission from 2 Wesleyan churches and a Congregational church and a Baptist church. Their ministers opened their churches up to Moody and Sankey. And the first 10 days were not good, which is not surprising because there was little unity, because Sankey was very unknown and Moody was barely known. And it was summertime, which is always a difficult time to get people into church. So but the second Wednesday, which was the last day in one of the Wesleyan churches, the glory of God came and many were saved. And someone wrote, the Holy Spirit's powers mightily manifested and anxious souls were all over the building, in the body as well as in the gallery. The aged superintendent of the chapel seemed paralyzed by astonishment. He could do nothing but weep for joy. Isn't that fantastic? The following day, they came here to York Baptist Church. And this then was a very new building, about 5 years old, and a young minister. And the minister had invited Moody, but I'm not sure he really knew why. And he wrote many years later, I was a young pastor then in the old city of York, and bound rather rigidly by the chains of conventionalism. Such had been my training, and such might have been my career. But here was a revelation of a new ideal. The little vestry there, how vividly I remember it, was the scene of our long and earnest prayers as we knelt around a leather-covered table in the middle of the room. I remember that Mr. Moody at the Great Free Trade Hall, Manchester, referred to that little room as the fountain from which the river of blessing for the whole country had sprung. That's quite a testimony. and the glory of God descended here. Uh, it was packed out. Many people gave their lives to Jesus. And this young minister didn't really understand what was going on. He thought, well, this Moody guy, I can do this. He's not doing anything special. And so he asked his Sunday school teacher what she thought. And he asked her casually, well, Miss Lyons, how have you got on this afternoon? Oh, I told that story again. The story was the story of the Sunday school teacher who was dying and who had led all his class to the Lord. Oh, I told that story again, and I believe every one of my girls has given her heart to God. So isn't that amazing that the testimony of that dying man, he probably thought that the only people that he was responsible for leading to the Lord were his class. And yet over here, a few years later in England, many young people gave their lives to the Lord because of what happened to him. That's amazing, I think. And the young Baptist minister seemed amazed at what she had said as well, because he just didn't get it. And so he thought, well, I better pay more attention to what's going on. And so they used to take the people who wanted to know Christ to the parlor, and he would sit there and watch the conversions of these people, and he began to learn about conversion and what it meant and how to do it. And that man's name was F.B. Meyer, and he went on to write 70 books, sell 5 million copies, and be one of the most influential voices of his generation in the church. Now, what would have happened had he decided that what Moody was about was, oh, I haven't seen this before. I've never heard singing like Sankey's. I'm not going to invite them to my church. He would have missed his destiny, but he didn't. And I think we have to learn from this ourselves, that when we see something new, something that's beyond our own experience, or theologically different maybe from what we've learned, we shouldn't just dismiss it. We should discern what the truth is behind it and embrace it if it's from the Lord. Otherwise, we could miss our destiny. The Baptist minister said that they knelt around the leather-covered table in the middle of the room. This is the leather-covered table that they gathered around to pray. And Mr. Moody said in Manchester that little room was the fountain from which the river of blessing for the whole country had sprung. Prayer, always the foundation of an awakening. And this was quite a famous desk, but it's not in the room where it was, where it had been. So next they went to Sunderland, and unfortunately the meetings there were not good, because, well, the minister who invited them said that it was because there was very little unity. Only 2 or 3 of the ministers of the town gathered together to help. And in fact, he inferred that one minister actively spoke against the meetings. So that was a great disappointment. And then next they went to Newcastle, where the meetings really got going. From the first, they were full of people. They had many salvations. And remember that they would have had quite a lot of time, a couple of months probably, of prayer to prepare for these meetings. But they were about to the mission was about to fizzle out, because although they had a few um, meetings booked in different towns in the area, um, there were not many, and so they had plans to sort of end the mission. But uh, a minister from Leith, which is just north of Edinburgh, came to one of the Newcastle meetings, and he realized that God was in them, and he realized that Edinburgh needed Moody and Sankey. So he went back home and spoke to different ministers, and they agreed that they wanted to invite Moody and Sankey to Edinburgh. And so they invited him, and they told him that they would form a committee which would have both Free Church and Church of Scotland ministers in, so that there would be unity um, before they came. And there would be some months before they went, but there was lots of prayer um, and the unity of the ministers, which helped the mission tremendously. Um, Edinburgh was where they made their name. And somebody wrote, the dour Calvinists of Scotland were surprised by Holy Spirit and the love and forgiveness of the Father. I love that. And over the 2 years that they were on their mission in the United Kingdom, they went to many towns and cities. And the model of the meetings and the results were very similar everywhere they went, really. So I won't try and explain what happened in each city as they went along. I'll try and give you an overview of what happened generally. But just for those who are interested, I will read out their itinerary for that 2-year period. From Newcastle, they went to Darlington, Bishop Auckland, Stockton, and Carlisle before heading to Scotland at the end of 1873. They were 9 months in Scotland, where they ministered in 25 cities and towns all over the country, and then 3 months in Northern Ireland, mostly in Belfast, but also in Londonderry, followed by Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham, Liverpool, and finally 4 months in London.